Good afternoon. Thank you for your patience. Today, you're going to have to bear with me. It's going to be tough. Today, we are here to celebrate the life and memory of Albert Bazinet. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today to celebrate with Shirley, her family, and the Bazinet family. What can I say? Cancer sucks. Big time. And I think many of us have experienced a friend or a relative that has gone through all of this. And boy, some people have a lot of power and will. And Albert was one of those people. At this time, I'd like to call on Victoria Beaudry to say a prayer before we start the proceedings.
We gather here today in love and remembrance. May peace surround us as we honor a life that touched so many hearts. May the memories that we hold bring us comfort, the love that we share bring us strength, and the legacy left behind remind us to live with kindness and gratitude. Though we grieve, may we also give thanks for the time that we were blessed to share together. May peace be with us all.
Thanks, Victoria. First time I met Albert was probably in around 2009. Many of you from the Eriksdale region have known Albert a lot longer than I have. But I think many of us are in the same position. Once you meet Albert, you're his friend.
You can't hear nothing.
Thanks, Pat. I'll try and speak up a little louder, be a little closer. At this point, we're going to do a few speeches. After the talks, we'll open the floor to anyone that wishes to come up and say a few words regarding Albert. Lunch will be provided after we're complete, and also refreshments, so the bar will be open later. We're very grateful to see so many family, friends, and colleagues here today. And at this time, I'd like to call on Douglas Bazinet to say a few words.
Okay. Yeah. All right, can you hear me at the back?
A little closer.
Closer yet? Okay. All right. Try and remember to stay close. So if you can't hear, hold your hand up and I'll go back at her. One thing about Albert that I'm sure we all know is the minute you say his name, or you meet somebody in our circle of curling people, farming people, the question everybody else is, do you know Albert? And I think we all know that. I think my younger sister told me a story when the Brier was in Winnipeg. They had seats to go watch the game, first game. She quit counting people he talked to when she hit 30, and they hadn't even made it close to the seats yet. Albert's definition of a stranger was just someone you hadn't talked to yet. And I mean, Shirley must have a lot of patience to have stood there and let him talk to anybody. That's why he enjoyed camping. He could talk to everybody. They couldn't run away on him. I got to tell you a story about Albert. He really was full of shit at least once in his life. Well, maybe twice. But I was tasked with looking after him. I can't remember how old he was. He was about 2 years old. And my mom said, watch him. I'm going to go out and do chores. Because you all know we grew up on a farm. I'm sure if you met Albert, you know that already. So I'm looking after him all right. I'm in a different room with my nose buried in a book. When Mom came in, there was brown all over the wall, all over the crib, all over the mattress, and all over Albert. Never forgot that sight. Plus, I got heck for it. Albert had 3 passions. Obviously, curling, and this is a testament to the curling community he works with here. He loved curling. The one thing he hated about curling was he'd tape the big games when he was away at doing a bonspiel with his teams. Don't you dare tell him who won the game, because he'd get mad at you. He also loved farming. He grew up on a farm. All of his jobs, I can't think of any that weren't related to farming. He sold, he was a semen jockey for a while. He did milk recording. He worked on many dairy farms. He was just always into farming. His other passion, of course, is visiting and meeting with other people. And like I talked a bit about that, he really enjoyed people. He made me look quiet, and I think I'm a really big extrovert. The other thing about Albert is, does anybody know, or can anybody tell me that he said no to anyone? He never said no to anybody. He might say, I can't do it today, but you knew he'd be there. He loved helping others, especially on the home farm where Raymond is right now. He'd go out and help him drive tractors, chase cattle, get Raymond mad at him, all those things. And on the way back, it was an 1.5-hour drive. I always got a phone call to update me on what was going on out on the farm on Ericsdale. The other thing is he helped my son on his dairy farm, and I'm sure Raymond had the same calls when he was on his way home to update him on what was happening on our farm. The other thing I got to tell you about, he was very good at multitasking. Have you ever noticed that? He'd come help us pick bales, the round bales, and stack them in the summertime. He's the only person I know that could drive a tractor backwards and forwards, steer it, handle the loader, and talk on the phone, all at the same time. And I saw him do it many times, so it's not a one of. He was always kind to everyone. I never ever saw him. I saw him angry at some people who didn't get the work done that he was counting on, but he was always kind. He never said positive things about everybody. So, and on behalf of our family, the Bazinet family, he has 3 brothers and 3 sisters. If in case you can't recognize who his brothers are, you got your eyes closed. And I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters, and I'm gonna miss him.
like to call on Tyler Drews to come up and say a few words.
Hi, Tyler Drews, as Lynn said, and obviously I know Albert from curling throughout the years. Our history actually started a lot earlier than that. Both grew up in the town of Eriksdale. Not 100% sure when I actually met Albert for the first time, but I'm sure it must have been at the curling club. I can always remember those bright red suspenders and him beating whatever team he played. And it actually wasn't until a few years later where our closer journey began. We'd gone through a few coaches in our curling days and didn't really find the right fit until Albert came along. And that was his first time ever coaching, as far as I know. We decided to participate in a junior super league that had just started in Winnipeg in 2006, and we had a lot of practices leading up to it, and we had a lot to work on. There are 3 brothers on the team, probably at least as competitive with each other than the other teams themselves, and he had a lot of personalities to deal with there. One of the things I'll always remember from the practices, we always played this game called Crazy Eights at the end, and one of my brothers always insisted if we ever got a perfect score, we would get this special deck of cards to enhance one of the many games of cribs we had. I don't think we ever got there, but he might have given us pity in the end and just got it for him. A couple of years later, the junior curling tour just started in Manitoba, and I probably couldn't have participated in that without having Albert around. Didn't have a car, money really anywhere to get anywhere, and Albert drove us everywhere, booked our hotel rooms, of course coached us. We'd hop on a bus, meet him somewhere in the city, or he'd come to our apartment and pick us up. I'll never forget his cluttered dashboard. Or if one of my brothers was being silly, he'd turn around and say, give us permission to hit him or something. And the many times we were coming home late on Sunday from a Bonspiel and we had a Sunday night league, we curled in and we'd put on the GPS, it would show we'd be, cutting it close, and it was snowing outside, but we'd try to make up a few minutes on the GPS just so we could get to our game on time, and I think we made every single one. So kind of in our later years of junior curling, we had actually never been to provincials after many close calls, and it was my final year of juniors, and the morning of regionals, we woke up to find that my brother's car had been towed. We were living in Osborne Village at the time, and I called Albert in a panic. I don't remember how early it was, but I imagine we played at 9 in the morning, and it couldn't have been 20 minutes later. He was from St. Norbert all the way to our apartment, picked up our vehicle, and showed up about 5 minutes before we were supposed to be on the ice. And that happened to be the one and only time we made junior curling provincials, so it's a day I'll never forget. Even throughout juniors and especially after, we also played men's league together, starting at Fort Garry and moving over to a long-term home at Fort Rouge for the next 15 or so years. Met a lot of people in curling because of Albert, whether that was someone sparing for us, one of his junior players, or another coach, especially this one coach. Whenever we played his son's team in juniors, he'd had a tendency to get a little frustrated, and Albert would go turn to him and say, time out. Like, they had a lot of fun together, and you know what, they curled together in the MCA many years after that. And actually, in that final year of juniors, he helped recruit one of my now longtime teammates. All it took was a little questionable life advice at provincials, and here we are 20 years later, still curling. So we also played in many Bonspiels together over the years, in Winnipeg, out of Winnipeg. Northern Interlake, you name it. Anywhere there was a bonspiel, Albert was ready to go, and I was right there with them. Some of the more memorable ones, Moosehorn Skins, probably the most money we ever won together. We won the final event ever at the Grain Exchange together. A couple of times we even managed to combine one of Albert's other passions, camping, with curling. We went out to the Bismarck Summer Spiel one year. Shirley was there too, and actually the one thing I remember from that is we decided to do a twilight round of disc golf one night, and it was getting pretty dark towards the end, and so we started eventually having Albert go kind of stand halfway through each hole to try to spot where our frisbees landed, hopefully without getting hit. At some point it must have got too dark, and Shirley must have been worried because she sent someone else looking for us. That was the end of that round. On the flip side of that, we took a camper once to a bonspiel that was actually in the winter in St. Martin. It's about -40 out that weekend. And all I can remember is wearing all of my clothes to bed with multiple blankets and still not feeling warm. So that was a great time. And of course, Albert introduced me to the MCA bonspiel. There's way too many stories to tell about that. The one that comes to mind is just, we had been knocked out fairly early one year and decided, let's get some pizza, have a movie, and just relax for out of the bonspiel. And I actually can't tell you the rest of the details of what happened that night, but it was a pretty good time. Even when we weren't playing together, we'd follow each other's teams. I think maybe in the last year he played the MCA, it was the only time I ever curled against him. So that was pretty special. In one of the more recent ones too, he happened to meet my kids. They were here, and I remember the older one turning to him and saying, "Why does your hair disappear into your hat?" And Albert, took it in stride, and even as recent as a few months ago, he said, "I want my hair cut like Albert's one day." And I don't know what to tell him. So, even when we weren't curling together or he was coaching, we still had regular conversations about anything, whether it was curling, sports, or we just wanted to talk or decompress. We all had our opinions on anything and everything, and some of them usually in disagreement, and sometimes that was more fun. But you know what, we respected each other. It was never personal. And you know what, after every game we played, we'd still go upstairs and have a drink at the bar. It was just a tradition. So he always had the confidence in our team and our abilities, and I really appreciated that throughout the years. We were fortunate enough to have him out at the 100th men's provincials this year in Portage, and we hadn't really been having a great season to that point, but with him behind the bench, it was just like old times, and we had a pretty good run this year, so never forget that. One thing Albert always talked about in between all the curling conversations was his family. Probably felt, especially to Shirley, like he probably spent more time at the curling club than at home in winters, and that's probably true. He'd always call to check in on her or let her know if we were going to be home late or how a bonspiel was going, and I think eventually Shirley just said, yeah, I know, you're in another final. So we all had the privilege experiencing life with a great person. Knew how to express his opinions, but he always kept the mood light. He was my coach, mentor, friend, and I wouldn't be the same person in curling or life or otherwise. So I'm gonna miss him.
Like to call on Pierre Allen to come up and say a few words.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me now?
Closer.
Right.
A little closer? That's
Yeah.
good.
Right.
Okay. I'll introduce myself. My name is Pierre Allen. Lots of you know me. Many of you have never seen me before. I met Albert in 2018 when my daughter started curling in the MJCT. That's when I first met him. It was my family's first foray into competitive curling, and I hadn't met many people in the competitive curling community up to that point, but Albert was definitely the one who welcomed me the most into that community. I was also an alternate coach for the team, so I spent many an hour sitting behind the glass with Albert, watching the teams play. He taught me how to behave as a coach and gave me all the coaches' inside jokes. Of course, one of the most common being whenever a coach down the glass started commenting on, what are they doing? Why are they calling that? Albert always had the answer. He'd yell down, hey, John, I know why they're doing that. You get, why, Albert? It's junior curling. And it's followed by a big smile and a chuckle. And there's nothing junior coaches appreciate more right in the middle of a game than getting sarcastic comments. Of course, Albert was not immune to this phenomenon. Inevitably, you could hear him grumbling, and a call was made that he didn't like or a shot missed. And he'd pull his cap off and rub his head. And of course, we'd ask him why he had such a short haircut. And he would say it was because if he didn't, he would have ripped all his hair out by now. Personally, I waited for those moments when I got to ask my favorite question of Albert, and I'd hear him grumble, and I would yell from across the club, are you still having fun, Albert? And he'd always have a nice little smile and chuckle and say, always. So I hope I'm always going to have fun, just like Albert did. At the end of the first year, I actually joined the MJCT board, which meant I got to spend a lot more time with him. I don't think I can count the number of phone calls and text messages I got from him. I think those in the MJCT board, and many, many of you know that I think my most frequent text from Albert was, can I call you? Followed by a phone call. I don't normally get a lot of phone calls. So when my phone would ring, my family would go say hi to Albert for me. And most of the time they were right. When I told Albert this, he told me he was going to stop calling and I would have to call him from now on. And I think other MJCT board members who maybe here can back me up that they're probably in the same boat and their families have probably had the same answer. Those phone calls were at first all about MJCT business, working together, doing the Bonspiel's planning. I was working on the website, so there was lots of calls about IT related things in the website. In the spring, he would call and we'd planning for the next year, but of course a little bit of curling gossip would always fit in there because he would want to know or what he'd heard about the junior teams and who's playing with who, and he'd give me his little scoops and I'd give him my little scoops, and that was always a fun little spring activity. But as the years passed, excuse me, of course it expanded, and we started to talk more about our families and more about summer vacation and camping, and more phone calls for IT support because his computer wasn't working. Regardless of the topic, we always had time to talk about his favorite team. I think some of you may know them. They're a team from Newfoundland. I'm sure you all know, those who know understand the passion he had for that team, and especially when they were successful, or maybe more so when they weren't. When Albert coached my daughter, we often carpooled to the events together. We always made sure there was a large black coffee in the cup holder for him from Tim's. And during those rides, it didn't seem to matter where we were going, but I learned more about the Manitoba dairy industry than I think I ever thought I could have in my life. I won't forget his laugh from the passenger seat, his grumbles and cheers as he's constantly checking curling scores for every type of event all across the country, especially for curlers that he knew or curlers that he had coached in the past who'd maybe moved away and were somewhere else. I'm pretty sure Victoria's scores were checked when she went back to Northern Ontario many, many times while we were in the car. And then, of course, the other big thing is he would always have at least one farm that he would point to as we were driving by that he knew the complete history of and who lived there and how many cows they had and how many cows they had back in 1997. And he was and I don't think there is a farm in southern Manitoba that he doesn't know about based on that. But the most memorable part for me was whenever we left a club, without fail, Albert would pick up the phone and he'd call Shirley to let her know they were on the way home, if he should pick up something, if he wanted some supper. They were just the most true and honest conversations, even though they were small, little, quiet conversations about I'm coming home, I'll be home in a couple hours. You could just tell from the tone and the way they spoke that he really loved and respected Shirley so much, and I hope that I get to be like that when I'm older. So moving just back to the tour a little bit, Albert was the heart and soul of junior curling and the Manitoba Junior Curling Tour for over a decade. In the research I tried to do, nobody seems to know exactly when he became involved and when he became president, but it's been at least 10 or 11 years that he was the chair. He's been a junior coach. I think as Tyler's filled me in he's been a junior coach for a long time, for almost 20 years now. He won the Junior Curling Coaching Award at least 3 times, and as soon as a year ago, as soon as 1 year at the 2024 U18s was the latest one. So, he's been doing a good job for quite some time. But when it came to the tour, Albert was whenever a new team showed up for their first time to play with us, Albert was the first one to meet them and say hello and welcome and explain everything they needed to do, and the last one to say goodbye and thank you for coming when the event was over. I can't keep track of the number of nicknames and inside jokes he had with the curlers in general. I know at least one of them was called Trouble, but I'm sure it was more than one. And a few young ladies and a few young men were around there too. He led us through COVID and all the challenges it created at the time and since. When conflicts arose, he was our arbiter and defender. As many of you may know, the volunteering can be a very taxing and thankless job. And to think about how much time Albert put into junior curling as a coach and as the president of the MJCT, since I've worked with him in 2018, is just a true testament to his dedication and love for the sport, its athletes, its coaches, and parents. Even if all of us drove him at least crazy a little bit at the time. I'm going to repeat what Tyler said. He was also our leader, our guide, our historian, our coach, and our friend. I only really knew Albert for 6 years. While I was putting this together, the speech, I realized that I had a big blank spot before that I didn't know a lot about him, and that I'm really sad to know that now. But when I look back at everything that I wrote here, I realize the impact that Albert had on me and on my life, and I'm just me, and just on the speeches that people have already said today, and the people that are here today, I can see there's hundreds, if not thousands of people that have been impacted as much as me or more by Albert and what he did with his life. So I bet many of you have stories from your history with Albert that you could share, and I want to encourage you all to do so, because I, for one, would love to hear them. Okay, now the hard part. Okay, curling is going to be a lot less fun without you, Albert. We're going to do our best to keep your legacy alive by providing junior curlers in Manitoba with a welcoming, competitive, and fun environment which they can hone their skills and foster their passion for the sport you love. Thank you. For those who may not be aware, starting on Friday here at the Curling Club, the event, we had an MJC curling event we founded about 3 or 4 years ago around COVID. It was called the Heather MJCT, And in honor of Albert, it's been renamed from starting this year, or starting Friday. It will be known as the Albert Bazinet Open from here until eternity. If anybody's in town or interested, on Friday, we're going to have a little opening ceremony and dedication to Albert. It'll be at about 7:30 on Friday. If anybody's welcome to come, you'll see lots of young junior curlers and MJCT people if you do. Thanks.
Albert didn't have just one family. He had three. There was his wife Shirley and their family. They're number one. Number two was the dairy industry. Number three was the juniors and the MJCT. Now, depending on the time of year, depended on which family he was with. During the summer, family number one, Shirley, but also with number two and number three. Fall and winter, number three, then number one and number two. I think you get the gist of where I'm going with this. It wasn't just one family. And that was Albert. He always kept in contact with Shirley, no matter where he was. She always knew where he was because 90% of the time it was at a curling club. If he wasn't coaching, he was mentoring. If he wasn't mentoring, he was volunteering as a timer or just volunteering, period. If he wasn't doing that, he was following one of his former teams that he coached in the past. That was Albert. Albert truly believed in the sport of curling and helped develop many juniors that have risen to be rising stars. Albert missed many a family function with his brothers and sisters. But did he really? Because if he wasn't with his brothers and sisters, he was with one of the other families. He was out of function. So no matter what, he was there. I think he's touched a lot of hearts. And as it shows all of you that are here, he has spoken with you at one time or another and has become your friend. It's like was mentioned, if he's at an event and he doesn't know someone, he would just slide right in. He would listen for a little bit and he would get that sly grin on his face and he'd start up a conversation. And before long, you were his friend. There's just a few things that kind of comes to mind that I'd kind of like to read, which kind of, to me, represents Albert's love of and dedication to the sport of curling. Give us a heart to do what's right. Like curlers, true and keen. To be good friends along life's road and sweep our slide all clean. You have given guidance, skill, and good sportsmanship for the bounty of the game. Hurry hard, Albert. May you rest in peace. At this time, if there's anyone who would like to come up, say a few words, by all means, please do. You're more than welcome. I'm sure Albert would love to hear from some of you juniors.
Hi, everyone. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Daryl Evans. I had the pleasure of curling with Albert on and off for over 12 years. I met him at the same junior provincials that Tyler was at. We had a very interesting conversation in the basement that made our team decide that we were going to nominate him to be Coach of the Year that year, and it had nothing to do with curling. I started playing with Albert just a few weeks later, after the junior Christmas Bonspiel, curling with Tyler and Albert coaching us. He asked if I would spare at Fort Rouge, and 1 week turned into 2, which turned into 3, and from there I joined the team and kind of never left. We played in countless Bonspiels, so many games I can't even count, and while those are great memories, that's not what built the friendship that we had. Our friendship was built both on and off the ice. From the drives from Winnipeg to Ericsdale, to Lundar, to Moosehorn, to St. Martin, all the rides back when we were racing to make it home so that Albert could play his Sunday night game. To the phone calls before and after games to find out how we could have possibly managed to give up 3 when we were 2 up already playing 7 and lost the game. Or just to tell me about the goings of his teams. And as it was mentioned, Albert's coached some players who went on to some pretty incredible careers, one being a world junior champion. And I know how proud he was of all of the players that played for him. And I know he will be very sorely missed. So rest in peace, Albert.
Yeah, I'll speak into the mic. Albert actually coached my daughter in 2014, 2015. We actually stole Albert from Jennifer. I'm sorry. But he came and coached her team when 4 group of girls got together to compete for the Canada Games spot. They won their spot, and Albert then coached them in Prince George, BC at the Canada Games in 2015, and he did a fantastic job with him. And just thank you to his family for allowing him to spend that time with my daughter, because it wasn't, and her teammates, because it wasn't just for that weekend of that tournament, or that week of that tournament, it was for the full year, because they trained for the full year. So thank you very much. And whoever said, I think it was his brother who said that he never said no to anybody. He actually did say no when we asked him to be in some bonspiels with us. And he said no, because I have to commit to my junior team. So thank you very much. And thank you, Albert. And just on behalf of the parents that he's coached their kids, he did a wonderful job. Rest in peace, Albert.
I got the Bazinet short jeans, so bear with me. Can you guys hear me?
A little closer.
A little bit closer?
There you go.
Here we go. Hi, everyone. My name's Danielle Lobert. I'm Albert's niece. The Bazinets have always been so fortunate that we're a close family and that we can rely on each other for absolutely anything. I want to thank you, Albert, for bringing Shirley into our lives. You have been an amazing aunt and an amazing partner, and we love you so much. And I just want to emphasize that while so many people have come here today, I currently live in Thompson, and the last bonspiel he was at in Thompson, I couldn't talk to him because he was talking to so many of his friends there. We all know with the Bazinet, if you have a pulse and you stand still for 2 seconds, we're going to talk to you. But he loved everyone, and thank you guys for showing up. This means a lot to us. And just thank you for being a part of his lives, because you made his life so wonderful. Thank you.
See if I can get this mic high enough that let me know if you can't hear. We've heard from one of the parents, one of the many, many parents. I guess maybe I'll say a word on behalf of coaches or organizers, or at least for myself. My name is Daryl Argan, come from Stonewall area, now at Argyle. For about 20 years, I was involved in junior coaching and junior organizing. So I came to know Albert very well. I think he even taught me one of my first coaching credentials through MCA many years ago. But the thing I remember about him that will just stick with me all the time is just how well he worked with other coaches. I see the parents too, but to be on the backside of the glass, he was never short to share, a compliment, a joke. Sometimes I almost thought there'd be popcorn thrown some days, but he always shared knowledge with us. And I just remember any club, anywhere walking in, and that table where Albert was at just had such an air of welcoming around him. So it was always great to share a story with, and just enjoyed coaching with them, against them, and beside him for many, many years. Rest in peace, Albert.
Good afternoon. My name is Wayne Williams. Albert and I started coaching together. When we first met, we were taking the initial course to get our NCCP certificates. And from there, a great friendship blossomed. We coached together, we curled together. Our families camped together and fished together. We spent a lot of time with Shirley and Albert and Tyler, many times picking you up and dropping you off at the apartment, going up to Ericsdale for the men's bonspiel up there. It was a great time. About 15 years ago, I moved from Winnipeg to Kingston, Ontario, yet never got away from Albert. He didn't get away from me. We both continued to coach and would call each other, whether it was after a practice or after a bonspiel to the kids. And he was a great mentor, and we helped each other. If we had a situation or something that we needed to bounce an idea off of, we'd spend many hours talking about those. Usually when Albert was driving home, it was give Shirley a break from the curling. When we were curling, the one thing that we always had fun with was if things were not going too well, we'd decide that it was time to go visit the doctor. And the doctor was a bottle of Dr. McGillicuddy's. So we'd go have a little nip, go back out on the ice, and continue having fun. It's leaving a big hole. Not having Albert. Shirley, you know, we're there for you. Thank you.
The last 4 years we spent with Albert. We were, my daughter Autumn Good was with Team Geevers, Albert coached. We were with Team Enos, Albert coached. And the last 2 years with Team Norris. And we had some good times. Not only on the ice, but at home on the couch, watching Bomber games, hockey games. I'd like to thank Shirley for sharing Albert with us, because he was with us a lot. Blake got to know Albert really well because he had hour drives to Morris, there and back. And if you know Blake, he doesn't talk too much, so Albert filled the time. The curling rinks are not going to be the same. And I thank those for stepping up and taking Albert's place. It's going to be hard shoes to fill. Thank you on behalf of all the junior curlers and their families.
This will be short, but my name's Daryl Friesen. I'm like Pierre. I knew Albert from junior curling. He is the most selfless man that I've ever seen in my life. Junior curling for Albert was all about the kids, and the time and he spent with that game. My family would like to thank his family for all the time that he spent with all of us. And I can honestly say there's probably many families that won't come up to say that, but believe that. But thank you.
So just to prove Albert's my brother, I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I had to come up again.
Closer.
Yeah, just to prove that I'm his brother, I had to come up and say something again. The one thing that really struck home was my mom who said to us, "He's up in heaven now, teaching the angels to curl."
Albert cared deeply about supporting young curlers and his community. So if you wish to make a donation in Albert's name, contributions can be made to the Manitoba Junior Curling Tour. I think the information is provided on the cards if you have a card. If not, you can do it by e-transfer to samanthajevers@gmail.com. Please include Albert Bazinet donation or by check to the Manitoba Junior Curling Tour in care of Pierre Allen. Those donations can be made today or in the future. Just so if you have any questions, you can track me down or you can track Pierre down in that regard. Lunch will be out momentarily. But feel free, anyone else that would like to come up and say a few words, by all means, you can do it at any time. Talk amongst one another. Get that sly grin out, just like Albert always did. And have a good conversation. On behalf of the family, Shirley, and all of the families, would like to thank you for coming today. It just shows how much respect Albert has